Hi guys, this is experiment 5.1, Pigments of Photosynthesis, Paper Chromatography. So our purpose for this experiment is to observe various different types of pigments found in different leaves. This is on page 186 in your biology, your Apologia, Exploring Creation with Biology, 3rd edition. So first of all, you need to make sure you have all the supplies that you would need. So the materials listed are 2 coffee filters. They look like this. 2 clear glass beakers, or 250 milliliters, or substitute, and we're using clear mason jars. 2 squares of aluminum foil, enough to cover the top of your jars. 2 rubber bands, which I've actually already put on the jar, on each jar. Acetone, which is a type of thing that's often used in nail polish removers. So this is 100% pure acetone. A quarter, and our quarter is right here, sorry. Our quarter is right here, and we also need a metric ruler. So we have centimeters on this side and millimeters. That's the side we're going to be using. Fresh spinach leaf, and we're using a leaf from a American red elm for our red leaf that's needed for this experiment. You could also use a red cabbage leaf or a red lettuce leaf. Anyhow, okay, so one supply that is not listed in your materials is colored pencils, because after you actually run this experiment, you would actually draw out what you saw on your chromatography paper, which is really just your coffee filters, and so you would want to color off what you see. So make sure you have your colored pencils nearby for this experiment, for recording this experiment. Okay, so first of all, you should think about, what do you expect is going to happen for this experiment? Do you expect when we rub parts of the green leaf and parts of the red leaf on the chromatography paper, do you expect that to do something? We are going to be dipping the paper into the acetone. What do you expect that's going to have to do to our experiment? What are we going to be watching for? So these are all questions that you should be asking yourself before we actually start. So take a second, jot down your thoughts about what you think this experiment might be showing, and make your predictions about what you think might happen. Okay, do that. Okay, here we go. So let's begin the procedure for the experiment. They want to remind you that acetate or acetone is highly flammable, so make sure you don't do this near your stove that's on, or near a candle or anything like that. If you didn't have acetone, you could actually do this experiment with 70% rubbing alcohol, if you can actually find it in stores because COVID. But anyhow, so I've heard that the acetone actually gives you a pretty good result. So that's why I chose to use that. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, you would need to cut your coffee filter into strips. Each coffee filter should be cut into a 3 centimeter wide, so 3 centimeters wide, and at least 15 centimeters long. So I actually didn't cut my strips for the length, and I think I'll just cut them at the moment after we've bent them over to make sure that they fit in my jar, because your strip of coffee filter needs to be able to touch the bottom but not drag the bottom, if that makes any sense. So, so you're going to take it after you cut it, and you're going to kind of fold a crease so that it will be able to hang on this rubber band. So let me show you that, okay? One other thing that I didn't tell you that we will be doing for this experiment after you've actually cut out your filter, you will take your ruler and you will measure 2 centimeters up from the bottom, and you're going to draw a line across. That's your solvent line. And then 1 centimeter up from that, and that is your pigment line. And I chose to wear gloves on this because they made a big mention about how the oils that are on your skin can skew your results. So you want to keep the oils off. So they said you want to touch it as little as possible. So I went ahead and put on gloves so that no oils from my skin would affect the experiment. So we've cut the filter into the strips for number 1, where I put on gloves so that I wouldn't get any oils from my skin on. 2, I took a pencil and I drew a line 2 centimeters up from the bottom. And then I did that on both of my filters papers. And then, here's my second filter paper. Okay, so then above that first mark, I drew a second mark 1 centimeter above that. That is the line where above that you'll apply the plant pigments. Okay, so I already put the rubber bands for number 3 around each beaker or glass jar lengthwise, because that's what the strip is going to hang on. It says 1 at a time, measure where to fold your chromatography strips by placing them in the beaker or the cup. So I did that on this one, making sure that I folded it so that it actually touches the bottom, but doesn't drag the bottom, if that makes any sense. So then I can take it up and cut off some of my excess. So that makes my paper exactly 15 centimeters. So on that one, let's try it on the next one. So we're on step 4. Cutting off my excess, leaving enough that it'll kind of hang, but not enough that it'll get in the way of my actual experiment. Okay, that one's about 15 and a half, so I'm going to cut it just a little bit more so they'll both be the same. Okay. So both jars have their papers just barely touching the bottom. Trying to make that fold crisp. So that's the one jar, and that's the second jar. So they're both just touching the bottom. But not dragging the bottom. Okay? Okay, so 5. With one of your chromatography strips flat on the table, place the spinach leaf over the second line from the bottom and create a pigment line. So we're going to take this paper, we're going to take our spinach leaf, we're going to take our quarter, and we're going to roll it over that pigment line. Roll the coin back and forth about 15 times to ensure enough pigment is applied. You should see a heavy green line after the spinach leaf is removed. Okay, so one, two, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so we have a green line above that pencil line or pigment line. We're gonna put it in our jar, and we are going to go ahead and before we pour the solvent in, we're going to do the same thing with our red leaf, our red American elm leaf. So, hey Todd, it's actually not angled so that it can see me do the rubbing of the... Rubbing this about 15 times to create a wide band of pigment. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here's our second chromatography paper with the red elm. See, it left a red streak after we rubbed the quarter on top of the leaf. We rolled the quarter, sorry, on top of the leaf. Now we're gonna put it back in our jar, making sure that it hangs just touching the bottom. Like the other paper. Okay, double checking. Making sure it's straight. Okay, so we got both that are just touching the bottom. Now we are to to 6. We're gonna pour the solvent into the beaker. There should be enough to completely cover the bottom to the depth of about 1 centimeter, but not enough to reach the solvent start line. So not enough to reach that first line. Okay. So we are doing 2 at once. And because we went ahead and did, we hung our chromatography paper strip over the rubber band already. And here we go to, actually I guess maybe we need to pull it out so we don't splash it. And the same with the next jar. This acetone is really strong smelling too, guys. Okay, so we have 1 centimeter in the bottom of each. And we're gonna put the lid back on this because it doesn't smell good. And we're gonna carefully hang our paper in each jar. So here is the spinach leaf. Okay, it does not touch that first line, which is good. That's what we're going for. And here is our second. It also does not touch. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna wait and about 30 minutes or until the solvent reaches about 1 centimeter from the top of the strip. So we're gonna start our timer going. And start watching and waiting. Oh wait, we actually have to put our aluminum foil over the top. Okay, check back with us. A little over 30 minutes. And we're gonna check and see what we have so far. So in the green, we've taken the lid off just so you can see a little bit better. The green line is where the solvent has stopped coming up. Okay, so it's taken the green and pushed itself up. So this was the line that it started at, and no solvent was above that line, so it sucked up the acetone up the strip and took the green stripe that started off right here at our pigment line and moved it up. So here's what it looks like. Okay? And then this is our red leaf, and it has basically stopped right above. It did not seem to take the solvent all the way up the coffee filter. It's almost like the red leaf, the waxiness of it kind of stopped. But we have, interestingly, is these green chlorophyll lines. So that's what that looks like. So what you need to do is draw in your lab journal what these both look like, okay? So you need to have a sample from both. Showing what they look like, okay? Okay, that's the end of our module 5.1. So these are the questions you should answer in your conclusion. How many pigments were separated in each type of leaf? How do the pigments in the spinach leaf compare to those in the red leaf or any other leaves you investigate? Explain why each leaf is the color that it is using the pigments that you found on the chromatogram. And photosynthesis requires a green pigment, chlorophyll. Using your observations, explain how a plant with only red leaves can carry on photosynthesis. So that is experiment 5.1, Pigments of Photosynthesis, paper chromatography on page 186 and 187. Make sure you record all of your observations in your lab journal.